There we go. All right, my friends, I am so excited to bring on Bretigne Shaffer out of Los Angeles. And Bretigne, right? Bretigne. Yes, I just told her I'm from Maine. We don't pronounce things in Maine right. It took me a long time to figure out my R's. But anyway, this is great. And so someone who has been more advocating of freedom than Bretigne, I don't know who that person would be, frankly. And I've been around a long time. And as I told you many times, my first I campaigned for Harry Brown in 1996. I'm not familiar with the freedom movement, but no one has been more favorable towards advocating for freedom than Bretigne. And so welcome to the podcast. I am so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is
fantastic. So, all right. So you're in Los Angeles now, and freedom runs supreme there. Why LA? Why not Tennessee or heaven?
So yeah, good question. We moved here. So long story short, I've kind of lived all over the place. I went to high school and junior high school here. Got out as fast as I could. Went and lived all over the world. Met my husband in New York, and we moved. He got a job with Google. We moved up to Palo Alto. We had a son at that time. Then our daughter was born. She was born with we later found out, a chromosomal anomaly, which causes seizures, intellectual disability, that kind of thing. And so once we got her diagnosis, we felt like it'd be really good to be around family.
Yeah.
So, and it was one of the best decisions we ever made for so many reasons, not just because of our daughter, but just, our son got to spend time with his grandparents. My father passed away at the end of 2019. And I'm so grateful that I was able to be here in his last years, to spend time with him, to be able to be there for him, when he was going into the hospital, all that. So that was, that was one of the best decisions we've ever made. So that's why LA. I mean, because it does sound kind of crazy. It's like, why would you choose to be in this place? But my family moved out here, my parents, when I was a kid, in 1977, and moved to Burbank. And so
where they moved from, your folks?
From Nebraska. We were in Nebraska. Yeah.
Oh, so are you born in Nebraska?
Born in Nebraska. Yeah. Yeah.
And they just said, we're going to be.
Well, my dad got a great job offer. So we moved, and I'm glad we did. I'm glad, the experiences that I've had because of that were fantastic. Now when we say Los Angeles,
about that. We got Thunderstorm. One of my dogs just barked. Hold on just a second. I told Bretigne that I got my poodle babies, and we just had a thunder, and of course one of the guys, oh my goodness, we're all gonna die.
And probably my dog's gonna hear your dogs, and he's gonna come, yowling in here, thinking that there's some great catastrophe going on. So that's
go ahead.
Yeah, that long story short, that's why Burbank. So we decided to move down here. That was back in, I was like 10 years ago. Yeah, we moved back here 10 years ago. And, are considering, possibly moving elsewhere, maybe Kentucky. We have family in Kentucky now, possibly Northern California. It's interesting. I was late 2019, there was a law that was passed in California. It was actually an amendment to a law that gave the Department of Health basically the power to do anything if there's an emergency declared, or I don't know if the word pandemic was used, but if there's a health emergency declared. So when that passed at the end of 2019, I was telling my husband, we got to get out of here. They're going to do something. There's going to be something. And I was expecting there to be some kind of not this, not worldwide. I didn't expect it to be this big, but I thought they're going to do something in California so that they can use this law. I've just been watching these people long enough to know that none of this is by accident. They have their plans, and they're pushing and pushing and pushing. And so, but then my dad was in the hospital, and we couldn't really go anywhere. We were looking at Idaho. And then at some point, after all this craziness got started.
Hold on, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. He just, I love the pups.
Yeah.
After this craziness got started.
Yeah, when it got started, so in the spring of last year, I guess it was, there was a certain point, I think it was actually 4th of July when all over California and Los Angeles in particular, they said no fireworks. They canceled the fireworks shows,
Right.
and they said, don't blow off any fireworks. It's
Right.
illegal. And you can watch these videos of
Right.
Los
Yeah.
Angeles exploding in fireworks.
It was awesome. I remember that.
Yes. And when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm staying.
There's hope.
Yeah. And it was the first time.
That's very professional. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it. I've got pets and kids and stuff all over the place. It was the first time, I think, in California that I felt like there were people here who were with us.
Yeah.
I don't think there were the majority by any stretch of the imagination, but they're there. And not only that, we're being pushed so far. It's like these guys have taken it to such an extreme that all we have to do is push it. It's going to fall over.
Yep.
It's just, I feel like, so something in me shifted when I saw that. It was like, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
This is really a chance to just, they've overplayed their hands so far, and they've pushed it so far that just poke and buy, so I feel like that's where we are. I don't know how long it's going to take, and I don't know how bad it's going to get before we get, before it does topple. So I'm not being stupid about it. I'm not going to stay here regardless. If there comes a point where we need to pick up and go, we'll do it. But I'm no longer thinking, let's get out of here before, everything happens, because this is a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. So you sound actually like I am. I'm actually optimistic that they've so overplayed their hand that people have got to they got to draw a line in the sand and say one way or the other, this is where I stand. You can't be in the middle of the road here anymore.
Yeah. And the other thing is they've lost so much credibility in doing so. I mean, you look at both, public health departments, the CDC, the WHO, the state, I think itself, it's just the state and the medical establishment, they've lost so much credibility that whatever happens going forward, they're just not going to have the kind of sort of blind support that they've had in the past.
I couldn't agree more. I 100%. I think it's actually. I'm going to stop record for just a second. Okay. Hold on, just one. Stay. Go. Okay. All right. So we were saying that basically, the kind of thing is just going to tip over a little bit. We don't know when or how, but what's your take on looking at the glass jar? I mean, your crystal ball, I should say. What do you think? A year, 20 years in our lifetime, or what do you?
I'm probably a terrible person to ask about timing, unless there's some specific thing we're watching for, like the, there are certain times where I've been able to say, like the thing with 2019, where they're going to use this. I wasn't surprised when it happened in early 2020, but generally I'd say I'm not that great at predicting, putting time, giving something a timeline. I don't know. I'd like it to happen sooner rather than later. I think back to, I visited the Berlin Wall in 1983, 84. And at that time, you would talk to people, it's like, everybody hated the Berlin Wall. We hate it, but it'll never come down. It's here. There's nothing we can do about it. And only a few years later, it was 88, 89, that it was just gone. And it happened so fast. So I don't know. I'm not a good person to ask about timing. What I will say is that it's what we need to be doing is really building what's going to replace it. And I've actually been saying that for years.
Well, that's what I was saying, because you've been on this for a long time. Saying, I mean, building it was going to replace it. It's just, do people, I guess my only concern is that people actually, at this stage, Bretignie, I'm not sure people actually want freedom anymore. I'm actually convinced that a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think we're seeing, so the horrifying part of all this, really, even more so than, I don't think I ever had any illusions about what the state might do. I was surprised at how fast things happened and how quickly they were able to just do all this crap. Yeah. But what's really been a shock to me, and probably shouldn't have been, but has been the response of people, just ordinary people. I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I feel like I'm the one who's been saying for years, I've been saying, God, I feel like I've been, airdropped into North Korea. People just buy this stuff. But now it's like, for real, this is, I can't believe what I'm seeing from people, and I'm recording some of it. I'll go on nextdoor.com and like just take screenshots of stuff to show, a few years later, this is what people were doing, this is what people were saying, because I don't think people will believe it. It's just, so that's scary. It's scary, but it's good that we know. It's good that we know it. And I think we need to realize that it's, we're not gonna solve anything, and we're not gonna create solutions by depending on the masses to join us. It's really, I think it's a small number of people. A lot of us already know each other, and we're going to be the ones to rebuild, and we just can't get distracted by the fact that there are all these people just going along with the craziness. As disturbing as it might be, we've got to be focused on the solutions, and I do believe that there are enough of us to create those solutions.
And like one thing is the solutions you were talking about a conference last week with the medical health freedom, you know what I'm saying? Things of that nature that will appeal to a certain group of people, us, and then a lot of people won't. They'll stay in the, they'll stay in background, and we'll escape that, but we'll still be within the same society. It's just, we're going to do our own thing over here. They're going to do their own thing over there. But I mean, at the end of the day, people don't like when they're fearful when other people aren't, you know what I'm saying? So I guess my concern is you got a bunch of people just scared crapless, and they're going to say, wait, Bretignie, you're not scared. You should be scared too. We're going to mandate you're scared, or else we're going to, throw you in a dungeon.
Right. And more than that, you're putting us in danger by having this little freedom zone. What I talked about in that presentation was like creating sanctuary jurisdictions for medical freedom. And there are ways, I say that there are ways in our existing system that are completely legal that you can do this. And you don't need to take over the whole world. We can establish things, piecemeal in area by area. But you're absolutely right. When you're surrounded by people who are governed by fear, they're going to see you as the threat, just for living and breathing and not wanting to take their medications. So just to back up a little bit, I mean, the pharmaceutical industry and its really control over media have been working on this narrative for a very long time. And I wrote about it back when they were trying to push even more the mandates for school children. And they were plugging measles. Measles was the big thing to be afraid of. And if you know anything about measles, you know that it's not. But most people don't really know anything about measles.
They don't.
And so they were pretty successful in pushing this fear campaign about measles. And the whole idea was the people who are not buying into the fear, the people who are choosing not to vaccinate their children, they're a threat to you. And that's the story they've been pushing. And they're pushing it to people the people who buy that are the ones who don't do the research. They don't look at the studies. They don't get a deep understanding of our immune system or of these kinds of childhood illnesses or anything. Because once you go just a little bit deep, you see that it's not the way that they're presenting it. But the problem is most people don't go very deep. And that's true for medicine. It's true for foreign policy. It's true for so many, finance.
Afghanistan is the perfect thing. You know what I'm saying? We all fell for the rally around the flag. I did. I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
A lot of people did. Some of my friends did who then later came out and said, God, what was I thinking? And,
exactly.
But bravo to you to be able to turn around and say, wait a second, I thought this made sense, and it doesn't.
And that same thing's going to happen with what's this mass insanity right now. What you're doing next, you're going to say, what was I? The same thing's going to happen. Is just how many people are going to be destroyed in the interim. That's the concern that you got. But
right. And to me, so much of it gets back. To me, so much of it is really caused by government education, and it's the whole, trust authority, don't think for yourselves, and it's really.
Can I interrupt you there though?
Yeah.
See, I hear that a lot. I'm wondering, do the two-parent income family is what caused this government education? I wonder, like, if we're putting the cart before the horse there, the government education is the result of the women back in the world. Look, I don't care. I'm not, but I'm just, you got 2-parent families trying to make it to keep up the Joneses. Cause we haven't had much until basically the 80s, you know what I'm saying? And so now we got to have more. And so we just want to put our kids in these government schools for babysitting essentially. And I just wonder if it's not our own selfishness, frankly, to say we got to have more. We got to have bigger houses, smaller families. We got to have, and then the government says, okay.
I think there's some truth to that. I think, I don't know if I would call it selfishness so much as a lack of awareness of, the Amish really get it right on this, that you don't want to become dependent on systems outside of your own. You don't want to become too dependent on technology,
right?
Or on Amazon,
right?
Or on, because there is a risk to that. And for so long, we've gotten by without really feeling the pain of that risk, but now it's hitting us. So yeah, I think, I don't necessarily blame people for falling into that trap, because we've gotten comfortable. We've gotten very comfortable. We live in a very comfortable society. We're very wealthy. We don't have, for the most part, we don't have wars on our shores. Crime is kind of isolated. There are high crime areas of this country, but it's not as a whole. So we've cut it pretty good, and we've had it really, really good for a long time. And I think people have just gotten comfortable with that and forgotten that there's a risk to not having any self-sufficiency, and to living too big, to living beyond one's means. So I feel like a lot of people are learning those lessons now. I hear more talking about, needing to be self-sufficient and more cognizant of what we're tied into and what might have power over us and that kind of thing. So I think we're going to come out of this with more awareness about that.
So your parents were anarchists. You said they raised, all right. So were they, my parents were hippies. They moved to Maine to live off the land, and we had chickens.
Oh, neat. We've got chickens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I told my wife the minute we're going to get them again. It's been a long, long time, but we've had these kind of ebb and flows where we were back to land and stuff, the hippies and, the anarchists and stuff. Is this just a temporary thing, and again, I know you can't predict it, but you feel like, what do you, it's just, I hate to, is it just like, we've heard that many, many times over the course of history, and yet we keep going this trajectory of, more and more and more. I don't know. What do you think? Does that make any sense?
Again, I hate to try and predict, especially when, as I've learned over this last year and a half or so, I'm so out of touch with the majority of the people. I'm stunned. I'm still stunned. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely more of a movement to not even necessarily, to go back to the land. I'm seeing a lot more of that, but even if it's not in a dramatic way of like, we're pulling up roots, we're going to go totally, off the grid.
Right.
Even if it's not that, I think more, people are buying more from CSAs, and they're getting in touch with local farmers and that kind of thing. So it's not like, I don't think in order to have that kind of movement, it needs to be everyone going and living off the land, but more awareness of like where our food comes from, who might be able to shut off our food, and being in touch with the people who are more independent and who are not part of that. Even if you still live in the city or still live in the suburbs,
or LA County.
Or LA County, yeah, exactly. We use a CSA. We have chickens. We try to grow our own food if the chickens don't eat it. But there are ways to connect with other people who are kind of doing the same thing, that don't mean a radical shift in your own lifestyle necessarily.
I see. That's why I'm thinking there's this huge meeting in the middle of, like, I hate to say, like the libertarian Trumpers like me, and then the Bernie kind of bros that aren't, commies. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just like you have chickens in LA County, you know what I'm saying? And yet, no, I don't think anyone's going to sit there and say, because remember the CDC had this thing about 2 years ago, said, oh my goodness, backyard chickens are leading salmonella, and all the fear porn was like, oh my goodness.
Yes, I sort of remember that. Yeah. That was
did you read the study? It was like nothing. It's like 5 people got sick. And I'm like, how many people get sick with the CDC or the FDA stuff? It's nuts. But anyway, but you still got chickens. So they weren't able to. And then,
well, no, it's legal. So I don't know what the laws are for like LA City.
yeah.
We're in Burbank, and even, the law here says that you can have up to 12 chickens. You can't have a rooster, but you can have up to 12 hens. So yeah, it's fine.
Well, Maine, LePage signed a bill, the old governor of Maine, who said you could sell unpasteurized milk, what I'm saying, to people. And I said, and he's a right winger and stuff. And it's like a lot of, hippie liberals like that. I just think there seems to be this like kind of like I'm not right Trump and I'm not left, Biden. What I'm saying? I'm more.
Yeah.
I don't say.
Well, and
yeah,
I think this sort of false dichotomy between right and left has also, it's sort of forced people into these camps and these tribes. Yeah. I think there are going to be a lot of people who are just, kind of by nature tribal, or just are going to cling to that tribe no matter what. And I think you see that so much with the left, especially, that they really, so many have just gone off the rails in terms of what they support because it's their tribe. But there are also a lot of people on the left and on the right who are just thinking individuals and have some sense of right and wrong and some sense of, wanting to be able to make decisions over their own lives, who are not going to just cling to their party no matter what the party says. They're actually looking for solutions and thinking outside of those lines. So I think those are the people who are like, if you want to say, our tribe,
right?
It's the people who are not going to attach to a tribe because it's a tribe, but are looking for more freedom, looking for I would say a certain kind of society, but it's not necessarily going to look the same from one place to the other. It's just people who recognize that there's something really devastatingly wrong with what's going on now and want something different in the direction of more freedom, not in the direction of more of this.
Well, you had written an article I was going through some of your writings from 2004, where you talked to a Black lady who's had friends in Iraq, and she was like, you're like, I'm not voting for anybody, and you I don't know if you remember that article, but it's very
yeah.
You said basically, don't put your faith in politics, and it's funny how much I've come to that now. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I think a lot of people have. Yeah,
it's interesting, and I thought this. I mean, you were saying that in 2004. And yet this, I find that, so she was like, I don't like Kerry, I don't like Bush, I just want my friends out of Iraq. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you're like, well, politics isn't going to, in this case, whatever, but it's just like politics isn't going to rescue anybody. It's and you got to rescue internally through your own CSA. I just find it, I think it's great. Given that you can even raise chickens in Burbank, California, so they haven't, there's still common sense and some type of freedom.
Well, I wouldn't say, I just think they haven't had the time or energy to crack down on it yet. But,
really? Oh man.
I mean, I don't know. They're kind of nuts here. So here's another interesting thing. And I think I talked about this in my presentation is, there's a difference between, like in localities, this, like the city government and the police, and we've seen this, and the sheriffs, and we saw this all during the pandemic, where there were a number of sheriffs who said, no, we're not going to enforce this, and the city governments were on ones. So I think there's also a rift there, and it's really something. And I just keep saying this, I'm a big fan of Sheriff Mack. Learn about the power that sheriffs have, because
who's Sheriff Mack? Who's that?
Sheriff Mack. Okay. Oh my God. Sheriff Richard Mack. He fought the feds and he won. And he has an organization, Constitutional Sheriffs and Law Enforcement. I'm probably saying the name wrong, but I can send you the link to put up if you want. He's awesome. His whole thing is about the power of that sheriffs have to basically nullify laws that they see as unconstitutional. He says, and it's true that sheriffs take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And so if there's a law passed federally, statewide, in their local jurisdiction, and they look at that and they say, well, that's not constitutional, mask mandates, lockdowns, all that kind of thing, they can refuse to enforce it. And this is not even an act of civil disobedience. This is within the law. This is their role. But a lot of sheriffs don't know about it. And so his whole mission is to educate sheriffs and to train sheriffs and to train people in how to use this perfectly lawful legal power to nullify this crap.
Oh, when we were at the Fulton County mask mandate protests, I was talking to this guy, and we had 8 cops there. We're just like, man, if these cops would just say, we're not going to do this, the whole facade would go away. You know what I'm saying? But, the cops are, they want to protect their pensions. I get all that. But we're just sitting there thinking, if these 8 cops just said, or even not even 8, if 2 of them or 3 of them said, we're not going to do this, and they pull people out because they're not wearing a stupid mask, the whole thing would just fall away. It's just that simple. And like, at some point, we got to rely on the cops, like the sheriff's deputies and the sheriffs, to say, no, they can say all they want, but it's not legislative. We're not. That's it. So Sheriff Richard Mack. Okay.
Richard Mack. Yep. He's awesome.
Where's he out of? What's his?
He's in Virginia. No. He's not in Virginia. He's because he was in Nevada. He was in New Mexico. Okay. I think he's in Nevada now. But he's you'll see him online.
Oh, right on. That's awesome. Fantastic.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, I wanted to mention, though, it's not just about law enforcement, because there's also the issue of licensing. So if you're a business and you're licensed by the state, they can take away that license for whatever reason they want. I mean, you're basically operating, at their whim. And so we really need to start nullifying licensing. And one of the ways, I'm just learning about this myself. This is a new thing. Private membership associations. In fact, we've just started one, and we're going to be doing some exciting things with that. But basically,
you excited when you said that. You had a spark in your eye the minute you said that. So it's
going to be cool. Basically, with a private membership association, you're not serving the public, you're serving your members. And so anybody, the laws that apply in terms of licensing, OSHA, all that whole regulatory layer doesn't apply. It applies to businesses. It doesn't apply to families. It doesn't apply to a membership association. And we've seen this like with the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts, were sued for discrimination and they won because it's a private membership association. So that kind of thing. So I am already seeing a lot of people getting into, starting to create these for education, for selling organic food, for having a business. Where again, you're only serving members. If someone wants to come and do business with you, they have to become a member. So people are starting to do this, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
That's interesting. So a primary care physician could say, screw all that stuff. I'm not going to mandate a vaccine in here, even though
I think so. It gets stickier when you start dealing with like the FDA and medical licensing, because with medical licensing, yes, you could practice as a PMA, and people do. There are doctors who practice as a private membership association. The problem is if you lose your license, you then can't have access to prescription medication and stuff like that. So it gets a little bit stickier, but it's still, that's part of my vision I think we need to have PMA hospitals. I think we need to have PMA medical centers where people can go, and the doctors there would still be licensed or at least some of them would, because they need to have access to the medication and stuff. But it's becoming dysfunctional. The healthcare has been dysfunctional for a while, but it's just it's reached a level, where when people can't go in and be with their loved ones, when they're, dying or sick.
Did you see the lady in England when her husband died, and the son went to hug his mom, and the freaking guy in England said, you gotta stay within 6, you can't come 6 feet. I was like, it's sick. I was like, who would ever say this? And the woman, Grandma Jones, is sitting there crying. Right there's a casket. Son comes over, hug her, and he was saying, no, you got to leave at 6 feet. I was like, this is freaking.
It's just
worried about the Taliban. I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
I don't care about the Taliban. This happened right here.
Yeah, get the Taliban out of this country first.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's sick. It's just and pregnant women being forced to wear masks while they're delivering babies. I mean, if there were any other country doing this, if this weren't happening in the US and we were watching, Iran or China or something doing this, people would be calling for us to bomb them.
Exactly.
Americans would be saying, oh, we got to go after those people and invade. And it's unbelievable.
It's just shocking to me. And I mean, how many supposed conservative small government types that I know are like, oh yeah, this, I was like, and the people who like me, they said the climate change science is all a scam. And yet I said, but you don't believe the climate change crap. And yet you're falling for that. I don't get it. It's just the fear, which is going back to what you said about 2019 in California. Is like, that's odd that they just happen to come across that now. Shoom.
Right.
Would you give some back? Because where I came across you, and I can't remember how, was on the Lou Rockwell. We were thinking about first they came for the anti-vaxxers, and so I have 4 children. All right, my wife's got 8 brothers and sisters. I have 2, so it's 12 of us. None of us have any allergies. None of us have any issues at all. No asthma, nothing. We have 4 kids. All have allergies to some regard. All have 2. Well, one has significant asthma, but all have allergies in some regard. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I started to look, I said, something doesn't fit. I said, what the hell is going on? So I started looking at, various things. I said, is it the MMR? Is it the 21 now CDC recommended doses for infants? I don't know. But anytime I got in a debate about that, the pro-vax side would just come down like the fury of God. I was like, these guys are crazy.
They don't want you to talk about it.
No. And they said, the science is set. I said that, well, I'm just agnostic. I just want to know. And this is only back in 2013 or so, or maybe 14. Yeah. Then I came across your thing and I said, oh, this stuff has been happening. Because I was completely ignorant before that. I said, this has been going on for a long time. So, we had the measles, and actually my mom's a big hippie. I said, hey, what's the deal with the measles? Did you get me vaccinated? She goes, yeah, because she had the measles when she was a kid. She goes, it wasn't good, but I figured, what the hell? I trust my doc and all that. And I said, okay, and that's fine. But, I said, Mom, they got 21 now new vaccines that the CDC recommends for infants. She goes, yeah, that seems quite a bit. I said, yeah, exactly. So what has happened? Just your history and your studies and your knowledge of what happened? I mean, we're getting along.
Well, so the big thing that happened was in 1986, the vaccine manufacturers got immunity from liability. So they went to the government and said, hey, we're not going to be able to make vaccines. If we're liable for the harm that these cause, we are, or that, people claim they cause, because, it ends up being up to a court. But they said, if we're going to be liable for our products, we'll go out of business. We won't be able to produce vaccines if we're going to be liable for harm. And so the government basically granted them immunity from liability for harm, unless it's there's one, if it's shown that they've deliberately been
right.
But that's not what we're doing.
Deliberation there.
Yeah. I mean, that's not what is going on here. And so what happened right after that was passed, the number of vaccines, the number of childhood vaccines started climbing. Other things started climbing too, like chronic conditions among children. It used to be that, God, how long ago? Maybe like 50 years ago, like 10% of children had some kind of chronic condition. Now it's like 50. It's like 50%. And somebody you should watch is Dr. Paul Thomas, who recently, I had him on my podcast, and there's actually a book coming out about his story. He wrote the book. Oh, I'm going to blank on the name now. The Healthy Vaccine Schedule, or he wrote a book, and I can send you the link for this too, about, going through each vaccine and looking at the risks and the benefits, and he has an alternative schedule that he did this years ago for parents. Like if you're going to vaccinate, well, here's the safest way to do it. And so he has been, the pro-vax crowd has just come down on him like a ton of bricks for years. He finally, I think it was the Oregon Department of Public Health, asked him, they wanted him to demonstrate that he wasn't harming kids by, and he, to be clear, he was a physician who parents were coming to because other physicians insisted on vaccinating. So he was the one they went to because he wasn't going to throw them out of their office because they didn't vaccinate. And so the Oregon Department of Public Health, I think it was, came to him and said, you need to prove to us that you're not harming kids by not vaccinating. So he did a study. He did a study in his own practice of looking at kids from when they first came in over like a 10-year period or something. Maybe it's longer than that. And looking at chronic conditions between the vaccinated ones. And when I say vaccinated, any of the kids in his practice that were vaccinated would be using some variation of his alternative schedule. They wouldn't even be using the full CDC schedule. So these are like partially vaccinated kids versus those who hadn't been vaccinated at all. And the difference is dramatic in terms of allergies, asthma, autism, all these things. The kids who were partially vaccinated, it's clear, fared much worse over time. And this is something that, a lot of us have suspected. A lot of doctors that I've spoken to over the years have said, yeah, this is what I see, that the unvaccinated kids are just healthier.
Is that because we're neither of us are doctors. I guess you're not. But
yeah, no, I'm not a doctor.
Nope. Is that just because of natural immunity? You know what I'm saying? Is that what I mean?
I think it's a lot of things, and I think it's also things that we don't understand. Yeah. I think so you have the opportunity to develop natural immunity, which strengthens your system, and we're seeing that in living color now. It's with COVID, it's the people who were exposed to previous coronaviruses and have T cell immunity from that T cell immunity is now protecting them against new viruses like COVID-19 and the variants. So we're seeing this in action if people are paying attention, that, if you allow your body to go through the process of becoming infected and fighting off an illness, especially childhood illnesses, which are not, they're not Ebola, they're not life-threatening as they once were, that your system becomes stronger. So there's that, but then there's also the harm that the vaccines do, the harm from the adjuvants, the way that they overexcite the immune system. And there's a lot of work that's been done on the link between vaccines and autoimmune conditions. So there's all kinds of stuff. There's, there are so many things, so many components of the vaccines that can cause neurological harm, that can cause harm to the immune system. I don't think, even among the people who really look at this closely, I don't think we have all the answers. Exactly. But it's both the harm from the substances and the denial of the opportunity to let your body do what it's evolved to do.
And one thing we do know is that there's no evidence that's safe when you combine all these things together.
Oh yeah, no, that hasn't even been studied.
I asked all these crazy vaxxers, said, just give me one, because I have people in my own family, said, just give me one piece of data that says all these combined are safe. And they always give me this, I don't think they do anymore because they know me, but this old Institute of Medicine study from, don't talk about 2000.
Yeah.
I said, if you read the damn thing, you would be on my side of this, because you would realize they actually proved what we've been saying, that they don't have any evidence whatsoever, but they don't read it because they said the headline says frustrates.
And that's why all this COVID nonsense is so successful, because people they read the headlines, and I think the propagandists behind this understand that very well. That you don't need to suppress. I mean, they do try to suppress the actual medical information, but you don't really need to, because the vast majority of the people aren't going to dig that deep. They're going to look at what CNN says about it. They're going to look at, the New York Times and what Fauci says about it.
And they're big Fox News. They're pro-vax. I don't watch it, but they're pro-vax too. My understanding, like, this crazy without any.
I mean, at least they've had some criticism. At least
Tucker. I think that's the only guy. I just literally don't watch, but I've heard enough people from my own YouTube channel says even Fox News is drinking the Kool-Aid.
I've heard that too. And the other thing is, I don't watch the news. I don't watch any of this stuff. I'll see clips sometimes that people send me.
Right.
But I have to remind myself that a lot of the people I'm talking to, that's where they get their information from, the propaganda stream, and so it's a different world when you're actually digging into things and looking at them for yourself. I mean, it's the same with climate change. And I haven't, I've only sort of scratched the surface with that. So I don't know what's real in that and what's not. I do know it's being manipulated for political purposes because I've seen that, but I wouldn't be foolish enough to say, well, here's what I think about climate change, and because I just haven't dug deep enough. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you actually have to look a little bit under the surface before you can have an informed opinion.
So how did you come to so you've been, pretty anarchist. Look, I went to George Mason. I have an economics department. So when I first heard anarchist, I remember this guy from New York University came to GMU to talk, Mario Rizzo. Anyway, And I said, he's an anarchist, he's a commie. And this is back in like 1995, you know what I'm saying? And that's literally, I thought that for a long time. I started thinking, oh, maybe not so much. Anyway, how did you get to the stage
Well,
where
I mean, I was raised by anarchists, so I was raised with you know, a high degree of skepticism about the state. But then, you know, starting in high school, I started arguing with people about it. And so I spent many years, high school and college, and a little bit, you know, out in the real world, it's a little, you know, people don't have as much time for intellectual debate, but I spent a lot of time arguing, first in my high school with more kind of right-wing, pro-war, kind of blue collar conservatives, I guess I would call them, arguing with them. And then I went to one of the most left-wing colleges in the country, UC Santa Cruz. And so then I was up against the communists, and the people in my high school thought I was a communist. The people in college thought I was a Republican. And but it was, I think it was good for me because I had the chance to really, I mean, my ideas were sort of tested on both fronts. I had to argue with both sides. And then after college, I went and worked as a journalist in Asia for many years.
I saw Hong Kong in the late 80s and early 90s. Crazy.
Yeah. I first went in 86. I first went in 86 as a student, and then I just went back after college. And so I got to see up close, I think one of the things that really made a huge impression on me was I got to see the economic development in China up close, visit factories, visit villages, talk with people, and see the progress, see
like Guangdong and places like that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it really went from a third world parts of it. It's different wherever you go, but Guangdong especially went from being this third world place to it's a thriving metropolis. Like, you know, I wouldn't recognize it if I went there now. Or Shanghai. I mean, Shanghai went from a ghost town. When I went there for Christmas of 86, 87. It was a ghost town in so many ways. It was, the lights went out at night. It was dark. It was just dark. And these massive buildings from the 20s and 30s when the Europeans had been there. I mean, it was fascinating. And it was just, but you know, it was hard to find restaurants that were open, you know, restaurants. It was very, very communist then. Everybody wore the Mao gray and blue suits and walked in bicycles. Not a lot of, I think there were taxis at that point, but not a lot of cars. It was bicycles and walking and buses. And you know, there just wasn't stuff like when you went out looking for food, it was just desolate. And just a few years, so when I went back again, it was just a few years later, and there were neon signs popping up, and people were starting restaurants in their living rooms. And you know, with the economic liberalization, they just started pulling back all these crazy laws about what people couldn't do, and it just exploded. And I mean,
just like that, you know, just they free the people. Next thing you know, you can find restaurants everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the bigger thing for me was when I went there the first time, it was you know, just the expressions on people's faces. It was like walking through the sea of people who were just kind of like this, and just like sort of shuffling from one place to another. And it was this kind of just depressing energy all over the city. And it was like, you know, just to get anything done, you had to just sort of struggle and crawl. And it's like nobody cared about anything. You go to a restaurant and the waitress would just be standing in the corner. She'd see you. She didn't care. She's going to get her paycheck anyway, and she doesn't care. And it was just the energy was completely different. People's faces were completely different. And just a couple years later, just with the opportunity to do something for your own life, to make a difference for yourself, it was transformed. I mean, the people were transformed. It was just a totally different place.
You say it, but that kind of just dreary look, it's kind of like a lot of people, the COVID fear guys, you know what I'm saying? It's like those guys are walking around just like, it's out to get me, like no smiles, no joy. You know what I'm saying? It's just sad. And I just, you know, it's like an Ayn Rand novel, you know what I'm saying? Everyone just walking around, gray skies and just gloomy. And then you come back a few years later, just some basic, it's crazy to me. It's just depressing seeing what's going on in Hong Kong. I mean, are you just like, I mean, I don't know if you're shocked.
I try not to follow it too closely because it'll just depress me. I mean, on the one hand, many of us who were writing about Hong Kong way back when predicted this and said, because the whole, when at the time of the handover, and even, so in 88, there was Tiananmen Square and big panic about what was going to happen to Hong Kong because it was going over to China in 97. And so mad dash for everybody to get out, to get passports, foreign passports, and then come back because they didn't want to live somewhere else. They just wanted to have the passport.
Right.
And the kind of the party line at that time among businesses and everyone else was, well, China would be stupid to interfere with Hong Kong because it's its golden goose.
Right, exactly.
Which is true, and which for a long time was true. I think it's less true now that they've got Shanghai and these other places that have sort of become, I don't want to say little Hong Kongs because they're not, but now that China is a functioning economy, they're less dependent on Hong Kong, I think. They may be more dependent on it than they think they are, but less than they were at that time, certainly. The other piece is, it's pretty clear that the CIA is involved in supporting the demonstrators. And I think that's unfortunate. I think that's a big mistake. I also think, and I know some of these, Jimmy Lai, who created Apple News, Giordano has been an outspoken proponent, ever since Tiananmen and probably before. I wasn't there before. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's a real entrepreneur and very independent thinking person, and which is hard enough, in China at all. And I believe he's still, he was arrested a few months ago, and I believe he's still, in jail. It breaks my heart to see that happening. They're good people. These are good people. And I think they are, taking aid from the US government, from the CIA, most likely. And I have to say, if I were in their shoes, I don't know what I would do, because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But I just think we've seen historically that good things don't happen when you cozy up to the US government.
The crazy thing, Bretignie, if you would have told me 4 years ago the CIA and the FBI are corrupt as the day is long, I would have thought you're nuts. And now I just 100%. It's just crazy.
Right. All you have to do is look below the surface. It's not.
It's a little bit. Just pull it back and don't even hide anymore. Real quick, do you think Taiwan is done for? And
I sure hope not. I sure hope not. I don't know, and I have not been paying close attention. Again, it's well. For a couple of reasons. One is it's depressing to me, and when there's really nothing I can do here to help. I lived in Taiwan for 6 months too.
Okay.
It was a very different place back then. But also I'm trying to just focus my energies now on solutions. I feel like, I'll write something from time to time. I'll still do a podcast from time to time, but I'm really taking a break from that stuff to focus more on solutions. I would hate
solutions be the PMAs things that nature. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. So you're like, look, the bad things are happening. It's kind of like the being free in an unfree world. And I think Harry Brown. So it's kind of like, look, I recognize the world is crap. I realize it's not free, a bunch of tyrants, but right here is what we can do to move the ball forward for at least this moment of time. Okay.
And I think there's some urgency about it too, because this whole system is in a state of collapse. Again, I'm not the one to ask whether it's going to collapse a year from now, 5 years, and I don't know, but it's clear to me that it's in a state of collapse. And so there is an urgency to, creating healthcare, and I don't want to say a system, but creating healthcare, hospitals, medical centers, ways of connecting with people, creating healthcare that is not dysfunctional, that works for people, because that's collapsing. And the financial system is going to collapse pretty soon, I think. And again, I shouldn't even say pretty soon, because again, with the timing.
We don't know, but 100%,
But things that we have been dependent on for a long time, public school is absolutely in a state of collapse, and that's the best thing that could have happened.
That's why I tell you that makes
sense. That's just to give a plug for our PMA. That's what we're doing. We're doing some educational stuff. So
and I'll give you a link. And the higher ed collapsing too couldn't happen fast to me.
Thank God.
Hell, the military, Bretignie. Look at the military. It's class. And I was in the Army. I'm glad I went. It was 4 years and got my GI Bill. But It was very good to me, but I was 1990 and 1988. It's a whole different, everything. It's just the whole thing is falling. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to topple, it could go Rome, we don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, all we can do is kind of, well, anyway, that's kind of what you're doing. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You had written, are you still writing fiction? You had written a bunch of fiction. Do you want
Yes,
to tell us
yes.
about the fiction?
Yes, I'll just, Annabel Pickering in the Sky. I don't know if you can see it.
Annabel Pickering. I'll put links
in
to
the Sky
show
Pirates.
notes, but tell us about your fiction stuff.
So this is, and then I also have Urban Yogini. This is, so I'll start with Annabelle. Annabelle's more for kids, although the feedback I'm getting is that adults love it. So I don't know. Okay. It's a sort of steampunk adventure pirates in the sky kind of thing. But it's really about the sort of underlying conflict is individuals versus the state. And it's through the eyes of Annabelle, who's this young teen whose parents are abducted from in front of her by the police. And we go through this whole thing of her trying to get them back and find out why they were taken. And there's a lot, it's about freedom, freedom of communication, of speech, of information, what the law versus, what's legal versus what's lawful.
Right, exactly.
Quite big questions about like morality of enforcing immoral laws. And so it's kind of her journey of becoming disenchanted with the queen and royalty and all this stuff, and realizing what's underneath and what really goes on, and starting to really question the whole system and to question authority. So that's the theme, but I think it's actually just a really good adventure story. And if you like adventure stories, you should get it, because it
looks like a big book. I mean, that looks like
how many pages did this?
Yeah, man,
it's kind of long for it. It's
how long did it take you to write it, Bretignes? I mean, that's
about 5 years.
Yeah, all right, exactly.
The second one shouldn't take that long because I've created the world already. But
so you're in the process of writing another one right now?
Well, I kind of started it, and that's a bit on hold now too, because of the education stuff that we want to get classes up by like mid-September.
Oh, man, so you guys are
at least some. So we're doing both online. We're doing online classes and then in-person sort of events and social things. And we're actually starting out with the class on propaganda. So that's, I think a lot of people will be interested in doing that.
Just make sure you wear your masks.
Yes, absolutely. Especially online, because that's how the virus it
goes through. It just goes through. And your other book, what's that about?
Yeah. So this is Urban Yogini. This is we call them graphic novels now. I can't call it a comic book. It's a graphic novel about, and this is not for young kids, because there's violence in it. There's some bloodshed and stuff. It's about this young woman who becomes, through the practice of yoga, gets the spirit of this superhero, this yoga superhero, who goes around saving people from police violence, among other things. But she can't use violence herself to do it. So that's sort of the dilemma that's in there. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens there. So yeah.
Now, did you do the illustration too?
I did the first illustration. So I did the first sort of story piece. I did this part, and then I hired illustrators to do the rest, because again, I did not have the time. It wouldn't have been produced if I'd had to do it all myself. So
so these books, when did you publish both of these guys?
Good question. So Annabelle, fall of 2019.
Oh, okay, recently. All right, gotcha.
Yeah. And 2015, Urban Yogini was 2015, and there's a little sequel. There's a Christmas episode for Urban Yogini too, and I think that was like 2016 or 2017. So that's a little while ago. Yeah.
And you're working on another one once you isn't you?
Yes.
You just got to get okay.
Once I've saved the world, then I'll get to back to work. Once we've got the PMA stuff in place, I'm gonna get back to work on it too.
How old? You got 2 children, and I won't take much more, but you got 2 kids.
Yeah. So we have our son is 14, and that's why. So we really are starting the PMA to be something that can serve him and kids in his age. So this is really for the first stuff we're doing is for teens. Okay. He's 14. He's been homeschooled for a while. We've been homeschooling for like 4 years now, I think. Okay. But even so, this past year has been a struggle as far as getting together with other people whose families might be kind of more
Nervous.
afraid of things than we are. And then our daughter just turned 12. She has a chromosomal condition that, so she has intellectual disability and she also gets seizures. And we were just,
And she's born with that.
I'm sorry?
She was born with that?
She was born with that, yeah. She, we didn't discover it until a little bit later, but she had some issues at birth, and then we did some genetic testing and found out. It's DUP15Q for anybody who's interested. So I've been, and this is one of the reasons I'm sort of so aware of what's going on with hospitals is I tend to, this past year, I spent a lot of time there. We were in the hospital for like 5 weeks back in May and June. And then I was just in this past weekend, we had to go in again. And then she had surgery on Monday. So, so she's there are a whole bunch of things going on with her, that we're, constantly having to deal with. But, I look at the situation that we're in with her, and that, lots of other families are in, where anytime you have a medical issue, you're so vulnerable to that system. You go in through ER and they say, oh, well, you have to have this, now it's the COVID test, and the mask and all that. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, well, no, I'm not going to do that because I need you to save my child's life.
Right.
Next it's going to be the vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
Just read this last time when we were in, they just changed it. And this was from the order came from the California Department of Public Health, but they're just going along with it. The hospitals are just, I don't know of any that are standing up to it as they should stand up to it. They're saying, you have to either show proof of vaccination or have a valid COVID test within a few days in order to accompany someone. So the patient, obviously, they're not doing that yet. But they do require for you to be admitted. You have to have a COVID test. They're not doing the nasopharyngeal anymore. And I don't know if it's because of me, it probably is not. But when we went in back in January, I said, we're not doing that. We'll do a cheek swab. And it took them like an hour to, anyway, long story short, we have to, people are dealing with this stuff all over the country. Yeah. And I fight it in little ways. Like I sent in a letter saying, I agree to this under duress. I don't consent freely to this. I'm agreeing under duress. And I think people should do that. People should speak up and say, I'll do this because you've got my child's life in your hands, but it's not okay. It's right. Not, I don't agree to this.
No, absolutely. How does it make you feel there, buddy? Knowing that,
Yeah. And whenever there's an opportunity, I'll say it to people's face too, in a polite and civilized way, that this is unlawful. What you're doing is unlawful and it's not okay. It's not okay. But I feel like that's not enough. We really need to start building. We need to start building our own places where we can go and not be tyrannized.
It's sad because it's just this all, well, I don't know. All right. Well, is she? I mean, I don't want to say okay. Right? I don't know what.
She's okay. She's okay right now. She's okay right now.
Walk and stuff. I mean,
she can walk. Yeah, okay. She can walk. She can get around. She's nonverbal. But she can kind of tell us what she wants. But she'll take her hand and like walk us around.
Oh, so she understands what you're saying.
We think so. She understands enough to get what she wants, sort of. Right now, she's. We had to go into the hospital because she had some increased seizure activity. We think we got that under control for now. She had a VNS placed, which is a vagus nerve stimulator, and we're hoping that helps things it takes a while to get it kind of up to a therapeutic level, but we're hoping that will long-term be a help. So right now she's doing well. She's still groggy from all the meds she had. But, as far as like, knock wood,
right.
She's doing pretty well right now. Yeah.
Can she go to the bathroom on her own?
No, she's diapered, and she will need care for her whole life. Okay. And so that's actually what got me into the whole PMA thing, because we realized early on we're going to need to create something to care for her after we're gone. And so even before all the COVID stuff, I already had a dream for that. I had a sort of something that I was planning that would be self-sustaining, not dependent on the government, not dependent on donations, but actually would support itself. That model has changed a little bit because now, it's just changed because of the way the world is and what people are doing. And I think in a bigger sense, our world has changed in that in a way it's become smaller, and in a way it's become bigger. It's like there's been this big division where all of a sudden this whole portion of humanity that I was counting on to to do
Yes.
business with our business,
Right.
they're not going to want to do business with our business.
Yeah.
But there's this other group that was
Yeah.
always there, and now we're just more in touch with each other. So it's like, yeah, we're maybe a smaller group of people than we thought we were before, but we're more closely aligned,
Yep.
and we've sort of been forced
You're
together.
forced together. I can argue.
Fantastic, but it's great.
No, it's like I get people on my YouTube channel say you have more subscribers if you did this, and I say the people I got are loyal to me, and I'm loyal to them. And that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never have 8 million. I don't care. I just it's I just if I stay on my YouTube channel because But what's your daughter's first name?
Ariel.
Ariel. Okay, so I'm a Christian man, and so I'll make sure I say a prayer for Ariel because and your son too. But you don't have to tell me his name. I just it's oh man, as a I don't know. I find it incredibly enlightening when people love their kids like you're doing to both your kids, come hell or high water. It's a wonderful thing to behold, and I wish more Christians would do the same because I truly believe that we're put on here to serve God, and as such, you serve the weakest of us all. And it's so easy to say when the money's rolling in, and I don't have a kid to take care of every day. But man, I just hey, God bless you. It actually brings a tear to my eye because I love hearing people take care of children who are hurting. You know what I'm saying? And when I mean hurting, I don't mean that they're I don't know. I love it. So I just bless.
Well, and I think I think I believe that all parents love their kids.
Yeah.
That's who we are.
Exactly.
And I know that if anyone's kid were in this kind of situation or in any kind of situation, of course they would do the same. I think, again, getting back to the complacency, I think we've just come to believe that and when I say we, I didn't put my kids in public school, but our son was in school for a while. Our daughter went to a school for a little while. Yeah. I think there's just been this trust that's developed in a system that's not good.
Yeah, but it works. But it's worked, and you're like, it works. So why?
It's worked enough. Well, it's worked enough. I mean, it's worked in that it's a place where you can send your kids, and it's not like they don't get any good out of it. They do learn stuff. They're with friends. A lot of them are often happy. It's not like it's all bad. But what we're seeing now is it's trained up a whole generation of people to not think for themselves.
100%.
And that's deadly. That's how civilizations die. So yeah, the downside of it may not be readily apparent as you're sending your kid to school. You can still love your kid and do anything for your kid and still send them to public school thinking that it's fine. And in a lot of ways it is fine. They probably have some great teachers and there's probably a lot of stuff that's great about it, but you don't really see the end result until we're in a situation like this. People can't get their way out of a paper bag.
40 years of propaganda, you see it all come to, you're like, oh, so like I'm 51 and, the people roughly a little bit younger than me are just falling, these like those the people in that town in China, they're just shuffling along, just miserable. And you're like, but thankfully this is going to treat anyway. So this will be the dividing line. And I actually absolutely but just because I'm optimistic doesn't mean there's not going to be some bad times. You know what I'm saying? And people are going to have to make some choices, like what you just said with Ariel. At some point, you gotta. It's but the cast. It was a cast has been. What do they say? The die has been cast or something.
Die has been cast. Yep. Yeah, we're here. We're in it.
And we know. All right. So, Bretignie, I'll let you get back to better things than yapping with me. I will.
This has been great. This is fun.
100%. This is fantastic. So, I will put all the links to your stuff on the show notes here. And just thanks for being here. But hold on, don't hang up yet. I'm gonna stop recording real quick if I can figure it right.